get a notepad and pen and paper. You don't have to be high tech, and just start thinking about it. And I was what they call here is a laborer. And I would just work on construction projects. But 2008 was very bad for the housing market, I feel, because you have less time. You have less time in your life, and you've got more things on your plate.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Vibe It Up, the podcast where we explore the dynamic world of tech and software development, but not only. I'm your host, Dan Tudorache, and I bring over 20 years of experience in the software development industry, wearing multiple hats as a solution architect, coach, trainer, psychologist, and now entrepreneur and business owner. So now you might be wondering, what's the vibe all about? Well, Vibe It Up. It's not a podcast, it's a community where we share experiences, where we have guests and explore their journey from the human side of doing things. So I have to with me today Casey Stubbs. Hello, Casey.
Hi, how are you?
Pretty well, pretty well. Welcome.
Thank you.
I will let Casey present himself because he does this magic tricks on sales and on YouTube advertising now. And I'm very, very curious on what you are doing now, Casey.
Okay, well, thank you, Dan. So I am the founder of a website called tradingstrategyguides.com, and I teach trading strategies and how people can make a profit from the market. And I've turned that into a business where I use email marketing and media to sell courses online. So I'm really got two different avenues of revenue that I've created. I've created financial investing revenue, and then I've also created marketing and business revenue. In addition to that, I'm the host of a podcast called How to Trade It, where I interview successful traders and ask them their tips and strategies on how to navigate the markets.
Wow, wow, very interesting domain. So I came from tech, and the majority of my audience is coming from the tech domain, and we basically as engineers we are caring about how the things are done. You care about more why we do it them and for who and how we apply them, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's very important. The what is very important. It's a great important question, and it's very technical, and you have to understand what is happening and what steps you need to do. However, I think the most important question is, why are we doing what we're doing? Having a strong foundation as to the motivation part, knowing why. And for me, why is because I just want to help people be successful in the markets, right? And along the way, I had to learn a lot of different what and how questions, like how do I build a website that gets traffic, or how do I keep an audience and gain their attention, and how do I create an offer that uh, generates sales, and how do I get a lot of traffic into my funnel, things like that, which are some are technical questions. How to build the funnel, how to do SEO, search engine optimization, is one of my number one ways to get revenue, and that's extremely technical, and it's really interesting how that whole thing works.
Indeed, indeed. So yeah, with there, oh, every time we build something, there is also the technical part, the numbers part, where we need to measure what we are doing, and we measure those by having the systems that help us to to see the metrics, to analyze them, and to be there and see if it does and makes sense on what we are building there. Right. Um, could you share a bit about your background and journey into until now, leading up to your current business?
Sure, I'll try to keep it sweet and interesting, but my path to, what I'm doing now actually did start when I was young. Um I grew up and my aunt worked for a computer company. My aunt Mary worked for a computer company named Intel. They create chips, very high tech stuff, right? And so that was back in the 80s. And so she would always bring home computers, parts, and different things. And she would teach me and my brother and sister how to set up computers, right? So we would build them. We learned how to make them run. And that was really at the start of the computer age, when people didn't, not everybody had a computer. So I was pretty fortunate to be able to get access at that young age. And then on that's where one of my ends. So I got just so interested in technology and computers and internet and all that stuff. But then on the other hand, I had my dad who was involved in the markets, and he would do stock trading and he would trade. And so I learned that from him. And they kind of came together because my dad, when he started to trade online, he didn't know how to use computers. He didn't know how to set all that up. So he asked me to set up his trading system on the computer. And so that's when I got introduced into trading, as I took my tech knowledge and I brought that into his trading world. And then I learned both things, and that was really cool. So then fast forward many, many, many years, I decided to start a business on the two things that I knew about, which was trading and technology.
Awesome, awesome. I mean, yes, that's a great start in this world, and you have been exposed from a young age. And I know in United States you had a lot more advantage than the rest of the Europe or the world, to say like that, because it had this part of the industry creative, and the internet got. In vogue earlier, and everything was there. So yeah, and reflecting on your journey, on your past, what were some key roles, or I don't know, projects or companies that significantly influenced your professional growth?
Well, I think one of the key mindset roles that I've had is always looking at the goal, like what needs to be done, what I'm trying to accomplish, and not necessarily what I have or what obstacles are in my way. So, a great example of that is when I first got started in the trading business. I didn't have a lot of capital, and I didn't have a lot of money to get started. I only had a very small amount, but I had a couple things. I did have a computer and an internet connection, and it wasn't a very uh, expensive computer or a great computer, but it was enough to get the job done. And so I used those, and I had the skills in the background. So I used what little I had, and I moved forward with that to try to take some baby steps and make some small accomplishments. And I feel like when I'm talking to people, they will get a little bit discouraged because they don't have the resources they need to get started. And one of the things that you just got to understand is you're never going to have enough resources. Even when you got all the resources in the world, you're still not going to have enough because your goals are always going to overstep your resources that you currently have, because to do more you're going to need more resources. So just a tip of recommendation is just find that thing. Don't focus on what you don't have, focus on what you do have, and make the most of what you are currently in possession of.
Yeah, awesome advice. I've been stuck so many years too in this. I don't have enough. I am not enough, right? So always trying to do other trainings, or always trying to get more knowledge, more and more, but without applying it. So at a point, I realized that okay, you need to do, and after that to learn more in during this progress. And as you said, the regarding the obstacles you had and you faced earlier in your career, um, how this shaped your approach to problem solving?
Well, the my approach is to, again, take inventory, right? Take inventory of what the problem is. And then you just start. One thing is, I like to step back, right? I don't want to just jump right in. I feel like people, especially in the United States, we're very busy people. We're moving, 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 moving. I think we're much more busy than other parts of the world. And so, because in my travel, I've noticed that, like we're always on the go, we're always on the run, but sometimes that's not a good thing, right? You got to slow down a little bit, take your time. It's not a race, right? You just take your time, step back, and just write down some ideas. Um, get a notepad and pen and paper. You don't have to be high tech, and just start thinking about it. Actually, that's one of the things that one of my mentors has taught me. He said, if you've got a busy calendar and a busy mind, you're never going to accomplish great things, right? And so that means you have to slow down, take time to think about things. So that's how I approach problems: is I just sit back, I grab a cup of coffee, I write my notes down, and then I come up with a system to to execute. Right? Okay, what is my first step? Right? Step one, and then what am I trying? I ask myself a series of questions. Right? Always be asking yourself questions like, okay, what is the problem? Define it. How do I solve this? What people? It's important to ask this question: what people can help me solve that problem? What people know something that I don't know about the current problem? Because I don't always search for the answers within myself, because I don't know everything, but there are some people that do know some things that I don't know. And it's good to ask the right people the right questions, right? So, for example, if my problem is that I have a leaky sink in my kitchen and the water is pouring out over the floor, I'm not going to call the doctor to get help. I'm going to call the plumber, right? I've got to call the right person to solve the right problem. And so that's one of the key questions that I ask: is who can help me with this? And then I say, okay, how long do I have to solve this problem? I give myself a time frame. What is the second step? If I don't accomplish this, if I don't solve the problem, then what do I do? How do I reframe and come back? Um, you know, Trying to make it a realistic, giving yourself a timeline, always having measuring things is so important. You want to measure what matters. That's a book that I read, Measure What Matters. Um, every problem and every goal has to have key analytics and data, and you understand that from your technical background. You can't just dive into it, and you have to know what is important and what metrics we're actually trying to push forward.
Yeah, yeah, obvious. So this brings me the idea. I don't know if you have always been like this, but is the mindset of self coaching and self consultancy in the end to always ask yourself questions, and important questions, not just random ones.
Well, I ask myself the questions, and that's kind of like a self-working thing, but I'm always trying to get myself connected to other people, right? Because, I'm definitely not a self-made man. There's a lot of people that have helped me along the way, that have taught me skills along the way, and I wouldn't be where I'm at if it wasn't for the people in my life that have helped me get to where I'm going.
Yeah, yeah, obvious. And yeah, thank you for that. And I'm thinking about I don't know, specific decisions that made or played a crucial role in shaping your trajectory and your success until now. Did you have some moment like that?
You know, I don't know. For me, it really hasn't been any like key decisions. It's kind of been like key problems, right? Like bad things have happened and I had to respond. It's either like, okay, you're going to respond and move forward, or you're going to uh, just not have success. So, like, for example, when I started the business, it was in 2008. I was working in the construction industry, and I was what they call here is a laborer. And I would just work on construction projects. But 2008 was very bad for the housing market. And all of the construction projects here in the United States just didn't happen anymore. And so I got laid off, and I tried to find a job. I couldn't. I did everything that I could to work. I was just knocking on the door, calling people, and I just could not find work. And so I had to make a decision at that point. Well, it wasn't really a decision. It was like I have to find a way to provide income and take care of my family. At that time I had 4 kids, married with 4 kids at that time. And so, there's pressure there to provide and to bring in income. So I had to make a decision. And the decision that I made is, hey, I know some stuff about the financial markets, and I know some stuff about the internet and websites and computers. So why don't I start this website and see what happens? And I didn't really have much of a plan. I just kind of tried it out, and fortunately for me, it worked.
Yes, yes. But you put all your effort and your focus into that decision and actions, actually, and you go and went with trying, I guess, in the first phase.
Yes. Yeah, I shot out there and I gave it an effort, and, I kept at it.
Mm. And mm, from all your experience until now, how do you approach critical decision in your life, in your career, in your company, considering your past experience and lessons learned?
So the older you get and the more work that you have on your plate, and as your business grows, your decisions become even more important, I feel, because you have less time. You have less time in your life, and you've got more things on your plate. And so your decisions are really important. So it's important to have a matrix. I think it's important. And I just do, I can't remember, I've learned it from different mentors and models, but I don't remember like who created it initially. A lot of people have used it, but I just do like a 4 quadrant, like, okay, what's absolutely essential? And, you put that in one area. What is, not as essential, but it still needs to be done. Where's that on the priority list? Um, and I just kind of blot my time out that way. And I try to really use my time to the maximum effectiveness. I feel like when you're in a role of business, it's just so critical that you are maximizing your time, because it's such a precious commodity.
Indeed, indeed, and it's I guess it's the Eisenhower metrics on decision making, or
Yes.
something
Yes,
like that.
that's right. Yes, that's correct.
It's
You're
I'm
familiar with that
using
one.
yeah, I'm using it too, and I'm using it too with my clients and doing coaching with them and all the career development programs. And I want to thank you from because you mentioned a lot of self coaching, self reflection, decision taking on what's important for you. On how do you think, from your perspective, and why is the emotional intelligence important for us as humans, and how that helps us?
Uh, well, I emotional intelligence is a part of good leadership, right? And so, we're talking about business, we're talking about decision making, and those things are really important. But to really be successful in business, you've got to be good with people, and you've got to be a good leader. And emotional intelligence is important with leadership because it's about relationships and understanding how I feel and how other people feel. And you're sometimes you're just not going to do well with it. You want to try to learn as much as you can, but it's about connecting with people, understanding what their needs are, trying to serve them. And as a boss and as a leader, you want to try to put people into positions that fit their personality. You want to try to make decisions that are going to help them advance their careers. You want to help them be successful. And the way that I always look at it is, if I can help them be successful, I'm going to be successful. And so I always try to put their needs out there, try to connect with them, try to understand them so that I can be a good leader and help them develop and grow.
Yeah, awesome example. I mean, as long as we advance in our life and career and we have more experience, we can share that experience with the others. But if we don't feel them, if we don't see their emotions, and if we don't see what drives them, right, we cannot sparkle that joy in them, or the motivation maybe to do something for them, because at the end we can guide them, but we're not responsible for what they will do after that.
Yeah, and that's a that the emotional intelligence part is something I have to work on. I really like to see people be successful, and I like to be a great leader, but on the same time, I'm a very goal focused person. And so sometimes when I'm looking at goals and tasks, I forget about the human side of it. And so that is something that I'm definitely working on.
Yeah, I think there's a balance between having more of this part of the empathy with humans, with employees, with other people, and looking at numbers when we have a company and we are directly responsible for us, but also for them, right? There is a catch here. How much do you go between being empathic and accepting their feelings and emotions and so on, and on the other part where the responsibility needs to be met?
Well, I always will try to go as far as I possibly can with the empathy side of things. But it's really important that we have one of the ways that helps with this is to have clear communication on expectations. I found that a lot of times emotions happen because I'm expecting you to do something, but you don't know that that's my expectation for you. And then when you don't do it, then I get very emotional because I had these expectations, these things that I thought that you were going to do, but they were never clearly communicated. And then you didn't do them. And now I'm upset. Right. And so our employees have that about me, like I'm the boss. They expect me to do things. And when I don't do it, then they can be upset. And so having very clear expectations and clear goals is really important. And one of the big ones that I talk about with my work is that I just try to set up an environment where we have an open line of communication. It's like, okay, anytime something happens, you're required, this is my expectation, is that you communicate this with me, because I can't always read your mind. I don't know. You have to communicate. We have to be able to have open communication.
Yes, indeed. So the communication is part of the emotional intelligence, but is based on our thoughts, on our behaviors, and is driven by our triggers and emotions and so on. So first came is the self control. The other part is the empathy and seeing emotions in the others, and after that there's communication, clearly communication and effective communication on what we expect and what other expect from us, because it's also important to understand. And thinking of that, um, have you been or faced, I don't know, team conflict or challenging situation where you needed to step up and be, I don't know, with all the emotional intelligence, with all the empathy to be more authoritarian, to say like that?
Well, that's the thing about being the leader, is that you have to keep the machine moving forward. And when things are going a little bit crazy, uh, and emotions might be high, you do have to say, look, this is what we're going to do. You know what, this is our vision. And that's another reason why, I don't know if I even mentioned it, but having a very clear vision for your company is so important, because it gets us working for something that's bigger than ourselves, right? Like, I can put down my needs if there's this thing that I'm trying to accomplish that's bigger than me, right? And we are working together as a group to do this thing that's bigger. And so when I do that, I said, look, I have a lot of empathy for how you're feeling, but we have this thing that we can't negotiate on this, because this is the vision, right? And we have to pick up the pieces. We have to move forward. We have to get this done, because the vision requires us to do this. I said, I'm compelled to have self-control and discipline and emotional control so that I can accomplish the vision. And you have to do the same thing, because if we don't have the restraints that the vision puts on our life, we're not going to be able to accomplish it.
Yeah, indeed. There is the responsibility versus empathy, right, and the balance between everything. So there are, of course, episodes when we need as leaders to step up and drive the direction, the vision, and so on. And sometimes it might be a conflict. It might be challenging situations. Maybe the numbers don't are are not as expected, and yeah, I'm wondering if you had in your experience, at least when you started the company and what you are doing now, this part of low numbers and struggles as in the startup phase.
Well, uh, I was pretty fortunate when I started that things took off pretty quick, which was really good. I mean, it was fantastic. And so that the startup phase for me was pretty good. I was just by myself, and all I was doing was writing content. I was writing articles on the website, and that was it. It was just me, and I learned how to make some money uh, from products, right? People reached out to me because they knew my website. They're like, "Hey, could we place your product on our website, or could we place a banner here?" And that's how I started to make revenue. Um, so I was really able to be fortunate that way. But then as I tried to scale and grow, I hit a lot of ceilings, right? So, um, my personal goal right now for revenue wise is to get to the $20 million point, to make $20 million in revenue every year. And every time I move one leg up, it seems like I hit a ceiling and I come down. I hit a ceiling and I come down, and uh, that's a big challenge. And what I read a book called "What Got You There Will Not Get You Here." And it was basically about how I have to change. As the business goes and I hit ceilings, my personal growth is what is required to take it to the next level. That means I have to actually change, and change is very hard. It's hard for
Mm.
people. It's hard for me. But you know, another book that I read recently, which is I'm sure you're familiar with it, is Atomic Habits by
Yeah.
James Clear. You know, in order to change and to really get to those next levels, we've got to develop good habits, right? Because we have to build that foundation. The tiny little habits. James in his book used an example of an airplane, right? So if you get in the plane and the plane is going from New York to LA and it's on a path of 57 degrees, if you move that thing half a degree, by the time you get to Los Angeles, you're going to be like 1,000 miles off your destination, right? And so for us to stay on course and to break through those barriers and to change, we've got to develop good habits in our life.
Yes, indeed, indeed. That it's a great book, and I always recommend it too. Sometimes it can be a little technical, from the perspective which is written, but it's very very important to implement those things, not just read them.
Yes, well, that's another one, Dan, that's so important is taking action. You know, in my business, I'm teaching people things, I'm educating, and I
Mm,
do coaching as well. And you know, with you, you have clients and you're coaching, so you understand. Um, I sometimes will get clients that have the same problem every week, and will have a list of things that they should be working on. Hey, did you work on this? No. Did you do this? No. You know, and they're just watching videos or taking in content, but then they're never taking action. And I'm guilty of that too. So I'm not just throwing sticks at everybody, but we've got to be action takers. We've got to take in, you know, read less, but what you do read, make sure that you implement it.
mm. Indeed, indeed, and I have the same situation with people that are coming to me to help them in various aspects on their career, on their leadership journey, or on the business and team leadership part. So that action is what keep keep us on the same level and stops us from growing. And it's important the motivation behind the words, and the motivation because I want to do that, but I don't do anything.
Yes. Yes. It's interesting. I mean, I'm not a psychologist. And so sometimes when I get somebody show up to session after session, and I almost want to say, well, why are we here? You know, what are
Mhm.
you doing? Like, why do you keep showing up if you're not going to actually make the change? I think
Yes,
it's that
yes,
they
and
want to. I think they're just stuck. I don't know, but you know, I've had trouble sometimes getting people unstuck, and sometimes I have trouble getting unstuck. Sometimes I'm stuck and I need help getting unstuck.
yes, and that's a challenge from all the perspective, because when you are unstuck from the psychology point of view, it means that you are not either congruent with the vision, the something from your values are not matching the what you need to do and what you need to be exposed to, maybe. And there's the other part, which is you don't have enough confidence in yourself, or you have some limiting self beliefs that doesn't allow you to go further. And that's
Uh-huh.
what I'm working with my clients to.
Yeah. And that's like looking at the root of the problem. Instead of saying the
Yes.
problem, well, there's a problem, but where is the root of the problem? And it could be in self-belief or
Hmm.
limiting beliefs, perhaps.
Yes, yes, and that's why in my program I put this part of the emotional intelligence, empathy, self belief, self control, and self management, because you need to be able to manage yourself and get yourself to the level that you want to, right? And get rid of the limiting beliefs and understand that you can do that. But until then, of course, there are a lot of struggles in the way. And from the declarative point of view, I want to do that. Until I am doing that, there's uh, not a long road. Many people are built this way, but other are just needs more help on this part. Yeah. And I wonder if a project you have or timeline that you have is falling behind schedule, or something is not working as it should. How do you address the team's concerns, your concern maybe, and motivate the others and yourself to overcome the challenges?
Well, you know, the thing about timelines is they're really important. Timelines are important that we get work done at a certain period of time. Um, I don't always worry too much about as far as when I'm going to hit my goal because I feel like as long as I'm moving forward, I'm going to be making progress. Sometimes I'm always very aggressive with my goals. I want to do it, and I want to do it fast, right? I'm not a slow person. I'm a fast person. If you remember the story of the turtle and the hare, like, I am the hare, right? That's my personality. And I have been burnt by that so many times because I'm jumping out of the gate, trying to accomplish things quickly. So now, as I'm maturing, I'm really working against that, and I'm trying to be slow and methodical. And so time is not as important to me as forward motion, right? I'm not so concerned about hitting goals at a certain time as long as we are still moving forward. Because I also understand that if you continue to move forward and you continue to make progress, that snowball effect happens, right? You're just doing a little bit, a little bit, a little bit, and then all of a sudden you get a big avalanche of success. And I kind of, if you go back to the book Good to Great, there's the hedgehog principle, right? If you can just be good at one thing, be the best at it, and just keep growing and growing and growing, eventually it's going to open up all kinds of barriers.
Yeah. Yes. Awesome. Thank you. Reflecting on your background, your career, you mentioned something about mentorship. Did you had some, I don't know, significant mentorship experience in your life, and which impacted your professional growth?
Uh, I've had a lot of really good mentors. I'm so fortunate. Man, that's made such a difference, right? Having people, good people who really care about you, to speak into your life, to tell you the truth. People that will say, "You know what? You're messing up. You're not doing this right." And I like that. So here's the thing. When someone tells you that, you're initially like, "Oh, like, who are you to tell me that?" Like, I
Yes,
this thing,
yes.
like, inside, this defense mechanism rises up in you. But fortunately for me, I've been able to sit back and say, "You know what? After my initial defensiveness, just that it just like a trigger, it just rises up. Afterwards, I think about what they said, and I'm realizing that they were right. And then
Mhm,
I was able to make adjustments. But it takes, see, here's the thing. There's I believe that correction is not rejection, because that's what my mentor taught me. He said correction is not rejection. And if you have a poor self image and someone
mhm.
corrects you, you get defensive because you say that person is rejecting me, right?
Indeed,
And
yeah.
and that's, you can't receive that. You cannot receive correction if you believe that you're rejected, because it hurts. It's like a knife in the heart. And so
Mhm.
I want to be teachable. You can't have a great mentor if you don't have a teachable spirit. And so I want to be the type of person that can learn from people who have gone before me, and just staying teachable and being willing to learn is really important.
Yes, yes, indeed, and that's remind me of myself also when back in the days when everything was so personal, and well, at least when I started to have a mentor on public speaking and this part of it was so hard for me to accept the feedback. Right, I felt okay, I'm not enough, I cannot do this, is I cannot be like that one and that one and that one, which are doing that for 20 years, by the way. So, when you compare yourself with the broader audience which have done that since time, and you just start doing one thing, it's very hard. It's very hard, as you might as wonder give up at that point, because you don't consider yourself that you are worth and you have the resources to do that, but it's not the case. So little by little, one by one, step by step, you can build. But
Yeah.
it's the mentality.
Yeah, and you brought up a really good point in your answer too. Is that comparison can be a trap. Comparing yourself to others. Everybody's different. Everybody has different skill sets. Everybody has different resources. Everybody has different backgrounds. Everybody has different minds. And when you are comparing yourself to other people and you're getting discouraged by what you see, that is very dangerous. It's a dangerous psychological place to be. And so I do compare myself to others, but when I look at other people, I want to celebrate their success and cheer them on. And I also want to say, hey, I use that as a motivation. If they can do it, I can do it. Not the other side is, well, oh man, they got this success and I did more than them. Why are they successful? I'm not. I'm smarter than them. I'm more handsome than that person. I've got more, like, why am I not where they are? Right? That's the death trap. They don't deserve it, but I do. You know, the other side is you can say, okay, look, I'm going to compare myself to myself. Last week, I was walking 10 steps a day. Now I'm walking 15. I'm going to celebrate my victory. And I also will compare myself to say, you know what? If they did it, I can do it. I'm going to use their success as a motivation to keep me moving forward.
Indeed, indeed, and that's a great advice and perspective. And that's what I wanted to ask you now. If you were to be the mentor of someone just entering in their career and just starting up, what advice would you prioritize in your guidance?
Well, I would say that the advice is, I mean, there's so many different things, so many different things, having a vision, having a good mindset, having a mentor, working on yourself and growing personally, thinking of others, uh, having perseverance and understanding that the goal of life isn't to make things easy, because it's never going to be easy. The goal of life is to grow and to get better and to push through difficult times and to have success despite the difficulty.
Yeah, indeed, indeed. And um, that brought me to another thing. If you were to build a new team for your company or a new project, what qualities would you look for to have a great team from your perspective of
For,
great team?
well, that's a great question. That's such a good question because I think the leader really determines what qualities that they're looking for. But I personally look for teachable, that they're willing to learn. If you say that they should do it one way, they're like, oh, well, my way's better, things like that. Um, Having a good attitude, attitude is much more important. Like, skill sets are important too, but it's not the most important thing, because you can teach skills, right? You can teach skills. And going back to the Good to Great book, get the right people on the bus and then get the bus going where it needs to go, right? You got to
Indeed.
get the right people on the bus. And so getting the people off the bus that don't belong on the bus, so another one of my great mentors said, hire slow and fire fast, right? Take your time getting the right person. And then if it doesn't work out, get rid of them quickly before there's too much emotional connection. And so, yeah, the biggest thing is just have that can-do attitude. And you do have to have some skills too, because some people have a can-do attitude, but then they don't have the skill they just can't learn the skills. And that's unfortunate. But you got to have the can-do attitude which is number one. And then number two is you need to be able to learn and develop skills.
Yes, yes, and indeed, and you're very right on this one. If it's not a match on what we are seeking as leaders, or what the people are seeking as a company, maybe culture or goals or vision, it's better to split quicker than to stay there. Um, yeah, if you could have dinner with any figure, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
Oh my. That's one of those questions where you really got to think, but I'll just probably say that I would pick let's see here. Boy, that's tough. We'll go with Winston Churchill. He was a very strong and opinionated leader. A lot of people did not like him at all, and a lot of people really do like him. Um, but I've read a lot about his life and studied him quite a bit. And, he was a very strong leader in some very hard and difficult times. And I think that being able to be with that person and talk through some of those things, you could learn a lot about how to persevere through some difficult challenges and end up ahead.
Yeah, yeah, indeed. Thank you for that. And you mentioned a lot of books during the podcast, and I'm wondering if you uh, want to recommend something, a book or resource that significantly influenced your career.
So I would say the first thing is really focus on reading. Just encourage people to do that because reading is just so important. It's a reading and then implementing, but reading is critical. I have just so many books that I have. I mean, just from my conversation, I'm referencing them all the time. They're helping me. But I would say for business, really Good to Great is such a fantastic book. So good. Like I reread that quite often just to keep me fresh because I forget a lot of the stuff in there. But such a great book.
Okay, okay,
How about
thank
you?
you.
What's one of your favorite books?
Uh, there are many authors, but I love the Atomic Habits very much because it drives you to take action. I mean, there's that part of realizing, okay, if you want to accomplish this, you need to do small steps and go beyond your limits and not taking the limits as they are, leave them behind. For example, yeah, yeah. As we prepare, as we going to finish the podcast, is there a particular piece of advice or insight you would like to leave with the audience?
Um, I would say that it's important to always have big goals and to work on growing personal development. Work on becoming the best version of yourself that you can be, and do that not for yourself, but so that you can have a positive influence on others. And, if you do that, you're going to be, very happy and successful.
Indeed, indeed. Thank you very much. And if you want now, if you can provide information on how our listeners can connect with you after the podcast, any social media profiles, website, or anything at your choice.
Yeah, well, my website is tradingstrategyguides.com, and then from
Mhm.
there you can learn some things about me or connect with me on LinkedIn and things like that. And yeah, I'm putting out content quite often. So if you enjoyed any of this, you can check out my website because I'm on a podcast too. It's called How to Trade It, and that's on my website too, tradingstrategyguides.com.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Casey. And that's a wrap for today's episode of Vibe It Up. I hope you enjoyed our insightful conversation with Casey Stubbs. Before we go, I want to extend a big thank you to our guest again for sharing his valuable experiences and perspective. So, if you, our listeners, have been inspired or have burning questions maybe after this episode, I encourage you to connect with us with Casey to search him on YouTube, LinkedIn, any his page or any other channels, and get the information that you want from us. Okay, thank you very much, Casey. It was a pleasure.
You're welcome. Thank you.